And reporting on the arrival of high-speed Starlink internet in remote indigenous villages in the Amazon rainforest. One of the striking things for me was to see this contrast between this old traditional way of life that the Marubos have had for many, many, many years, and this very new way of life that looks far more familiar to me, frankly. And that meant, seeing people hunched over on their phones, typing away, sending voice notes, watching, video clips.
Last September, an isolated indigenous tribe in the Amazon was connected to high-speed internet for the first time through Elon Musk's Starlink. The result? Social media and porn addiction. I'm not kidding, and I'm not surprised. So before we get into the adult performers putting up their content online component of this, I don't want to get demonetized for saying porn, but whatever.
You
porn.
Just did.
Okay, it's important to know a little more about the tribe we're talking about here, the Marubo. They actually weren't as isolated as one might have originally believed, and that's according to the New York Times' Jack Nickas. Let's watch.
Myself and our photographer, Victor Moriyama, we ended up hiking in total about 50 miles in order to reach villages of the Marubo people, which are an indigenous tribe that has lived for hundreds of years, if not longer, in one of the most isolated stretches of the Amazon rainforest. The Marubo are not a fully isolated tribe. Many of the Marubo actually already had smartphones, and they were using them to communicate when they were in the city or to take photos in the forest.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
So there you go, a little more information about this indigenous tribe. Honestly, like where they're living looks so beautiful. And I like the idea of having less technology and being in a more remote location. Does that sound real good?
Yeah, that does sound pretty great. I think that a lot of people, especially in the West, who see this story, like they if you read the article, there's plenty of positive things, effects that this is having on people. There are people in the tribe that are talking about wanting to go to the city to become dentists and things like that, and it's making them want to travel and all. And so all the good stuff from the internet is there too. But so many of us feel so utterly addicted and sort of like weighed down by the connectivity that the idea of there being people who aren't seems aspirational, and seeing some of that go away, it makes me sad. Like, I kind of wish I was on this stuff less. I'm way less on social media than I used to.
Same, yeah.
But yeah, it's when you get to it's the most predictable outcome, I think.
Yeah, so after Starlink connected the remote rainforest community to the World Wide Web, this was back in September, things were good for a bit. So when it arrived, everyone was happy, said Tisanama Marubo, 73, sitting on the dirt floor of her village's Maloka, a 50-foot tall hut where the Marubo sleep, cook, and eat together. By the way, everyone in this tribe has the last name Marubo. Okay, so just keep that in mind as I read more quotes. So she also explained that the internet brought clear benefits like video chats with faraway loved ones and calls for help when there's an emergency. So just like what we experience, right? The internet's complicated. There's this benefit to our lives in certain ways, but there are also downsides to constantly being plugged in. One Marubo leader, Enoke Marubo, all Marubo use the same surname, said he immediately saw Starlink's potential. After spending years outside the forest, he said he believed the internet could give his people new autonomy. With it, they could communicate better, inform themselves, and tell their own stories. Now all those positive benefits still in place, but then all of a sudden they start experiencing the downsides of the internet. So let's get to that. After 9 months of having Starlink, the youth in the village in particular became less interested in the normal day-to-day tasks and are upending the standards of decorum in their village. At least that's how it's being reported. Now things have gotten worse. Young people have gotten lazy because of the internet. They're learning the ways of the white people. That's not nice. That's not nice. Okay, but I hear what you're saying. Like, It's not that people get lazy. I'm sure this has happened to you before, John, where you're looking at something on social media and you're so engaged that you lose track of time, and before you know it, it's been like 5 hours.
I avoid some of the sites where that's very common. Like I've never really fallen into Reels or TikTok or anything like that. The closest I come is Reddit, which has a version of that.
I like Reddit, yeah.
Yeah, that can be time consuming.
So younger members of the tribe weren't hunting anymore. They weren't planting, farming, or doing necessary tasks that are part of their way of life. And according to Alfredo Marubo, who's the leader of the Marubo Association of Villages, he fears that knowledge will be lost, potentially due to all the porn that younger men are watching. Alfredo said that young men were sharing explicit videos in group chats, a stunning development for a culture that frowns on kissing in public. We're worried young people are going to want to try it, he said, of the graphic sex depicted in the videos. He said some leaders had told him they had already observed more aggressive sexual behavior from young men.
Oh God.
Probably because porn doesn't really depict real, what actual intimacy is, right? It's a fantasy version of it. Additionally, a father of 3 was concerned about the first-person shooter video games his 2 sons play. I'm worried that they're suddenly going to want to mimic them, he said. See, that's where I don't think you should worry. I mean, there hasn't really been any evidence indicating that playing violent video games translates to doing violent actions or acts in real life.
No.
So that fear, I would say, you're gonna be all right. But I do think that watching too much online pornography could lead to damaging, effects.
Especially if it is a culture where there's not much sort of like open talk or teaching about it. If there's like a black hole that suddenly you're throwing all of this into, that becomes what you know, and that can be dangerous.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, if this is a culture that frowns upon public kissing, that means that they're not having honest conversations about intimacy. And the worst thing that could happen is having a situation in which young men or boys are learning about the birds and the bees through pornography, which happens here in the United States too, and it's a huge issue.
Yeah, worrying, and that it happened in only 9 months. That was fast.
That was fast, but I mean, why would anyone think that the outcome would be any different? These are people, they're human beings just like us. So what we experienced with the phenomenon of the internet is something that of course they're gonna experience as well.
Well, and at a more intense rate, because of course most people grew up as the internet developed, and these things come over time. You don't just have the entire thing dropped in your lap, fully developed all at once.
Such a good point.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.